Today I'm going to talk you through how we seal our Roman oil lamps for use. Now this is an optional step that you can take, but the idea is that it helps to make the oil lamps a little less porous, so a little less leaky. They aren't glazed, the originals, so they were always going to be a bit porous, and they are always going to slightly absorb the oil. And also if the oil is left in for too long, the oil will start to leak out through the sides of the lamp. However, we do find that the more you use them, the more kind of resistant they become to that. I think the oil sort of becomes baked into the surface. So this is the lamp that you would get from us. You would get a wick depending on the lamp. You'll get a thick wick or a thin wick. They both work. It doesn't make that much of a difference which one you get. We mainly choose the wicks for the ones that best fit into the lamps. Is how we decide which wick to put into your lamp as we send it. So things that you might need to start prepping your lamps: a pair of tongs. To get your wick in, you might want some tweezers. You'll need your olive oil lamp, obviously, some kitchen towel, an old toothbrush, our instructions, some milk, and a pan and a heat source. So the thing that we do is we heat the lamps in a small amount of milk, which I'm not 100% sure which of the elements of the milk actually do the sealing process. Some people say it's the lipids within it absorb into the surface of the lamp and make it a bit more waterproof. Some people have suggested that it is the casein, a protein called casein within the milk, that actually starts to block up those pores. I'm not 100% sure. What we do know is that chemical analysis on lamps done by archaeologists and researchers has found that lamps do have obvious signs of having had milk somehow used on them or in them, and you're not going to be using milk to make the lamp go, so it seems likely that the presence of milk lipids is because they were sealed in this way. So you'll get a set of instructions with your lamp. If you don't get a set of instructions from us, there are instructions on the website. I will put a link to the website in the comments so that you can see that should you not have instructions for whatever reason, or you've lost them. You can then get the full instructions of how to look after and light your lamp. So the first thing we do is we get a pan with milk. I've pre-prepared this one, but you want to have sufficient milk that's going to cover up your lamp. So you just want the lamp to be completely covered and filled with milk. You're then going to place that onto a burner and you will let it simmer gently. What you do not want to do is let it boil. If it boils too much, what happens is the lamp will actually stick to the base of your pan, and if you've got a nice non-stick pan, this could damage it. So just use a very basic stainless steel pan with no coatings. That's the best sort of pan that you can use, and one that you're not too precious about. You just want to gently warm the milk to loosen up the lipids, to get the process started. And then you don't want it to bubble, you just want it warmed, just gently simmering, and you're going to leave your lamp in that milk for about 10 to 15 minutes. When it's been in there, and you can even leave the lamp to fully cool in the milk. So I've had this heated already, and it's now cooled down, so I can take it out. And what you'll see is there's sort of milk curds kind of on the lamp a little bit. So we've got some kitchen towel as well, one of the things you may need. So we're just going to dry off our lamp. And if you've let it get too hot, you will find there's a lot more cleaning required. So this doesn't seem to require much cleaning. But what you may find is you may need a toothbrush to just get some of the clumps of protein out of, or lipids or whatever it is, out of the little areas and the detailed areas. What you'll also notice when you take it out is this one just isn't quite as shiny as this one, and it's that shininess that you're looking for, because that shininess means that there's been some absorption. There's milk on the inside that I can see, and that's fine because it'll burn out with the olive oil, but try and get as much of that out as possible. We have never found that these smell, because you might imagine that if you kind of soak them in milk that eventually you'd get a sort of like rotting milk or curdling milk smell, but we've never ever found that with them. So there we are, you can see the difference, that there's just a little more of a sheen to this one that's been inside that, and it's not because it's wet, it is just that it's got an additional little sheen to it, and they go a little bit darker. Through use, they do tend to go a lot darker. So this has been used quite a lot. It's a little bit dusty actually. This one's been used quite a lot, and there's been a lot more absorption of the olive oil in that one. Once it's out and it's cool and you're happy that it has worked, we then, and like I say, for minimum cleaning, do not let your milk boil, because it will cause this to stick to the bottom of your pan. So once it is out and you're happy that it's cooled, you can then pour oil into this aperture here. So that's the filling aperture. The lamp's in a curve, an inward curve. So what should happen is the oil should go into there. You shouldn't be spilling it, but keep an eye that you're not overflowing your lamp. Now, depending on, you can do this a lot neater. I have to say it's probably easier straight from the olive oil bottle, but this is fine too. I'm looking in there to see if I'm full yet. I'm making a bit of a mess of this one. There. I've slightly overfilled it. We don't want it coming right out the spout, so I'll just pour some of that out. We do have, or we have had in the past, oil lamp filling replicas of items they believe may have been used to fill oil lamps. And I have to say, they've got a little spout and they are much easier. Unfortunately, I didn't have one to use today to show you. But this is fine, we just wipe off any excess off there, wipe the base, and wipe round. Now your wick, I had it soaking in the oil. We want that to be soaking for at least an hour, because you want the oil right the way into the core of the wick. It's particularly important with the thick one. The thinner one maybe doesn't require quite so much soaking, but you really need it to be soaked. If you put your wick in dry, there is no oil to fuel it, so you need that oil to be soaked into the wick. So it is a bit of a messy process. You can use your fingers for this, or you can use the tweezers, depending on your preference. And you want the wick right down into the base of the lamp there, because if it's too high up you'll get quite a black smoke. You'll get quite a lot of smoke, and if that's not particularly pleasant. If you have it nice and low, it's not going to be too much of a problem. Now, we always put our lamps on a plate to move around with them. It's just for safety purposes, it is much better to just have your lamp sitting on a plate. Then there's no possibility of spillage, there's no possibility of leakage, and if you need to move it, you can move it on the plate. You shouldn't be touching the lamp itself, because although this doesn't really heat up, this section does heat up when in use. So you will, if you accidentally touch that, you will hurt your hand. To light your wick, simply get a lighter, a match, whatever you have, and you're just going to light it. It does take, particularly the first time, it does take a little bit longer to get it going, but a little bit of patience with it and it will get going. And it provides a fairly decent light. One of the things that we like to do with our ones is we use olive oil as the base, but I also use citronella oil. So we have citronella oil that we mix with the olive oil for when we have barbecues, so when we're outside, and it really does help to keep the midges at bay.
where we are.
So yeah, you can see you're getting a very decent flame. If you want to adjust it, so I'm seeing there's a little bit of flickering, a little bit of black smoke. So if I were to want to reduce the flame, you need tweezers, and then you can just use your tweezers to push that down into the aperture. If for whatever reason you want a larger flame, again, you just want to pull that out a little bit, but it will give you a lot of smoke if it's out as far as that, so it's best not to have it as far out as that, but for demonstration purpose you can see. But yeah, tweezers are great to just be able to control that flame, and you will find that it will burn quite happily for a very long time without any major adjustment. It should be fine to just leave it like that. These lamps, we have attempted to do an experiment to see how long they will burn for, and what we found is that we've lit them, say, at 6 or 7 in the morning, and they're still burning when we're going to bed at night. So I think it was about from 7 in the morning to 11 o'clock at night I had one of these burning. I did choose to put it out by 11 o'clock because I wasn't brave enough to leave it on through the night whilst we were asleep, and didn't see the point because I figured it probably would have gone out at some point during the night, and there was no point, I wouldn't have known at the time that it went out, so I may as well just turn it off. To put it out, the safest way to do that is to snuff it out. So you can just use an old spoon and you just snuff it out and try and control that smoke a little bit so you don't get too much smoke coming from it as it's snuffed out. Once it's snuffed out, the best thing to do once it's snuffed out and completely cooled is to remove the wick and pour out the oil if you're not using it. So we have a jar where it looks a bit like a specimen jar, it's not the prettiest thing. I have a jar where I keep my wicks and I keep my oil mixture so that the wicks are always ready to go, and the oil is also there available, and it's a nice mix with the citronella. So when it comes to cleaning your lamp, which is something I probably do at the end of each summer season, I probably give them a little bit of a clean. What I like to do is I like to boil any oil out of the surface, any major oil, and then I'll bake them in the oven for a little bit just to dry them off and to make sure that any residual oil is baked into the surface as opposed to sitting on the surface. So just before I store them in, as the end of summer comes along, this is what I do. So I'll get a pan with boiling water. I usually get just an old rag, old tea towel, old cloth, something like that. That goes into the bottom of the pan. This is because when we put the lamp in, I prefer the lamp not to be clattering on the bottom. So that just helps to cushion it as it sits in the water. Then I place the lamp on top of the rag. If I've got more than one, I have a much bigger pan. I just do the lot like that. And then I'll sit and let it bubble away for a little bit. Turn that down. And what will happen is the oil, the residual oil, will melt and rise to the surface of the water. You can then either just remove it with a spoon if you want to. If there's quite a lot of oil, you might want to scrape it to the side, but usually there's sufficient, there's not sufficient to really cause a problem. I usually just take them out with the tongs. 10 minutes sitting on a flame will do it, and then it comes out. And yeah, there's not a great deal of oil from this one because it has been previously cleaned, but we then want to remove any of the water from inside the lamp, so be very careful. You don't want to pull it out and then find that that it's full of boiling water. That goes to the side. And then what I'll do often is I'll just give them a little bit of a scrub to get rid of any clumps of oil. I can see here that there's some stuff coming off. There is some so we're just trying to get rid of anything that is sitting on the surface. And you might want to leave your lamps if it's too hot for you to handle. Obviously, do not touch it. So that now, I'm happy with how clean that is, how much of the residue that I've got off from it. Now it is waterlogged at this stage. I mean, it doesn't feel particularly waterlogged, but there is going to be moisture in there. I can see there's moisture on the inside. So what I would do is I would put these onto some baking parchment so I don't damage my baking tray, put them on a baking tray and then put that into the oven and just bake them at 180 or 200 degrees for maybe 15 minutes to really make sure that any moisture that's in there is coming out and that any oil that is still in there is going to be baked into the surface. And it's a good way of getting them clean. You'll never get them pristine, but the ones that are found that have been used usually have this burn residue there. So I think it just gives it a more authentic look if it has a little bit of patina. That's the word, patina. So if you want to know more about how to look after your lamp, you can always look on our website. I'll leave a link in the comments where the full written instructions are. If you're buying from us, you will get a set of instructions in the box. And if there isn't one for whatever reason, you can always check the website and you will also get a wick. So thank you very much for watching. Bye.